Today, I want to talk to you about a real self-love situation. It's kind of a situation I'm in right now. And the situation is, what do you do when someone doesn't treat you the way you want to be treated? It could be a friend, lover, ex-lover, family member, or maybe a long-lost connection, as in my case, that it was that there's this behavior that is not what you desire. Now, I'm not talking about abusive behavior. I'm talking about communicating intensely for several days and then ghosting you for weeks, or saying they're gonna call at a specific date and time and they don't call. That kind of behavior. I'd like to have a little discussion about it, because as you're calibrating your self-love, and as I am calibrating my self-love on this self-love journey, it can be difficult to tell the difference between empathy, how you feel for that person, and your own integrity and your sense of self-love. So we're going to discuss that today, and I hope that you can help me solve my problem. First, as promised per last week, I'm going to start every video by doing a self-love check-in with you. And the first question, there are 3 questions in the self-love check-in. The first question is, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling right now? And just know that all feelings are acceptable. There is no feeling that is off limits. How are you feeling right now? For me, I'm feeling pretty good. Confused about the situation I'm going to talk to you about, but I am feeling pretty good. The second question in the self-love check-in is, what do you need right now? If there is something you need in particular, like a glass of water or to use the restroom, I invite you to pause the video now and go do that thing. And the third question is, what do you desire? You see, sometimes we suppress our desires because our to-do list is so long, we couldn't possibly put our desires in there. So I'd like you to just ponder, what is your desire for today? What do you desire? What do you really want to do today that maybe you've been putting off? And this doesn't have to be a chore or a task, but what do you really want today? Could be a piece of chocolate, right? So now that you've done your little self-love check-in, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Michelle Fondin. I am the author of 14 published books, including my latest books, Love Me Unconditionally, a spiritual guide to self-love and inner peace, and its companion workbook. Yes, this is to help you work through the chapters in the main book, to help you learn more about unconditional self-love and get out of daily pain. Really, that's what this is about. It's about getting away from the angst that you might be experiencing on the day-to-day. And of course, the day-to-day does build up for a lifetime. I'm here with my pals, Grogu, if you can see Grogu, and 2 types of Gudetama. I also happen to drink tea for our vlogs. I've got my Tessino Dandelion Caramel Nut Tea with Mando. So I got Mando and Grogu, yes. So good for today. I'm actually starting a little detox because I got back from vacation and I had been eating a lot of sweets on vacation. So the dandelion tea is actually a detox tea, but I'm doing a lot more for the detox as well. Another thing I want to mention is that I still do tarot readings and coaching, and you can book that at my website, michellefondinauthor.com. Let's get started, because I would like to talk to you about this topic. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened with me, and that'll maybe help you if you're encountering a similar situation where someone isn't treating you the way you want to be treated, and your empathy for them is kind of overriding your self-love, as it was with me. So I got in touch with a long-lost friend from many decades ago, This person at one point was very important in my life. Now, the thing that's funny is that there was someone else that had also resurfaced recently. And I kind of feel this is universe telling me like, hey, we want to see how you've calibrated those self-love lessons because the other person acted in a very similar way. Weird, right? But it kind of happened simultaneously. But I'm going to tell the story about this other person, the long lost friend from childhood, which had been a very, very good, strong connection. So this person resurfaced, and I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. We did a lot of catching up. We did a lot of conversations. We found connecting points in many ways. We had great conversations. And of course, there was the question of, do we continue this friendship or not? And this person lives far away from where I live. So it would have to be more or less a virtual friendship. And I just said, I appreciate you and I appreciate our connection. And yes, I'd be open to continuing the friendship. Okay, cool. However, as we moved through various conversations over text and over the phone, I noticed that this person is kind of flaky and tends to make up a lot of excuses for their flakiness. And I am not like that as a person. And in fact, I really hold high regard for my integrity. I walk my talk. If I'm going to do something, I do it. If I say I'm going to do something, I most definitely will do it. And what I noticed was there was like a missed phone call when that person had suggested it. There was a question asked in text messages several times, not just once, but a question asked. And when I responded, they wouldn't respond for like days or even weeks. And this began to irritate me a lot because I don't want a friendship or a lover or anybody else in my life that is going to act in that way because I feel that it shows disrespect. And I'm an empathetic person by nature. I give people the benefit of the doubt by nature. And I also have a habit in my past of giving people too many chances too many times because of those traits, those qualities. Does this sound anything like what you have done in your past, or maybe what you're doing in your present with somebody in your life, or maybe a couple somebodies in your life? The problem isn't, okay, one missed phone call, not a big deal, right? Someone could explain it away with a work or family obligation. Maybe they were sick. Maybe they were caught up in traffic, which you can still pick up the phone, but I can handle one time, right? If it's an anomaly, of course you would want to be empathetic toward that person. However, when it becomes a pattern, that's when you have to ask yourself, is this something that's going to continue, or is this something that is going to change? So when you're considering your own self-love, like I was considering my own self-love, is I really had to think in my head, is this a pattern? I know this person, for all intents and purposes, is not doing it on purpose to hurt me. I think this person is not particularly organized in their own life, living a little bit of a chaotic life in their life and mind. So I'm not taking it as this person is doing this intentionally to me, but I also know that my self-love is telling me this pattern is probably not going to change. Now, this is something very, very different than what I had done in the past. In the past, I would have extended a lot of grace to the person. I would have given them not one chance, not two chances, not three chances, but maybe 10 chances to correct their behavior, which is way beyond what a normal self-loving person would do, right? But in the midst of that, in my past, I had become irritated and annoyed at the flakiness or the lack of respect or the lack of respect for my time, right? And the friendship, really. It's also hard when you consider that When people make excuses for their behavior, it's not correcting the behavior. It's just making an excuse for the behavior. And I've decided that I am not interested in having close friends, lovers, family members who make excuses for their lives, because it doesn't make for a good relationship. This leads me to the next point that I asked myself, and that maybe you could ask yourself if you're experiencing a similar relationship problem to me. One time, a long time ago, my mother told me I had too high demands for the men in my life, notably my romantic partnerships, that my expectations were too high. And I really took this to heart. And for many years, perhaps decades, I thought it was my fault if I wasn't accepting of another person's excuses and flakiness. Because I thought, oh, my standards are too high. My expectations are too high. And after having gone through many exercises on my self-love journey, I realized, no, my expectations are not too high. If I didn't hold those same standards for myself, maybe they would be too high. But since I hold those same standards for myself, then I would wager to say that it's not that I'm asking for too much. It's not that what I want is wrong. It's that maybe I'm asking for the right things to the wrong person. And really, it was that aha moment that I learned while I was learning to love myself more. It's not that my standards were too high and my expectations are too high for relationships. It's that I'm getting into friendships and relationships with the wrong people, with people that don't have high standards for themselves, who don't have high integrity, who don't even have high self-love. And so when you're feeling guilty, as I was feeling guilty about maybe being too harsh, or again, having too high expectations, like wanting someone to respect my time, wanting someone to call me when they say they're going to call me, wanting someone to text back if they ask me a question and I answer them, I don't think those standards are too high. I think that we as a society have way lowered our standards, because I believe, and I'm going on a rant here, I'm very sorry, but I am going on a rant because I know you can hear me. I know you can understand me. We've lowered our expectations, way lowered our expectations, because it's very common for people to not walk their talk. It's very common for people to ghost these days. It's very common for people to not call when they say they're going to call. It's very common these days for people to text you, ask you a question, they not respond for days on end. I was talking, God, this must have been a year ago. I was talking with one of my dear friends, and this friend is not flaky. He is amazing. We were talking about this, about the fact that as a society at large, right, and this could be a global society, we have way lowered our expectations of people's behavior. And he said, wouldn't your mind be blown if you were sitting face to face in a conversation with someone, in the middle of the conversation, someone who was considered a friend, not a stranger, but a friend or a lover or a family member? You're in the middle of a conversation, they just got up and left and never came back, ever. Like, wouldn't that be horrid behavior? And I think everyone could agree that if you're in the middle of a conversation with a trusted family member or friend or lover, and they just stood up and left for good, wouldn't you be irate? And wouldn't the people around you go like, what just happened, right? And yet, because a lot of our communication is happening over digital media, we totally accept it, right? And we accept any excuse. And we even have empathy for people that do this. So that's when I really realized, I was like, oh my God, like I can't deal with someone who's going to be so incredibly disrespectful to me as a person. This leads me to like, what do I do now? Because I know for a fact, and I've been thinking this over for about 2 weeks now, when this particular communication that happened didn't happen, it was a few weeks ago. And it was at that time where I felt like this is it. It was like the third or maybe fourth time that had happened. And I had made the decision, the defining moment at that time, that is where I was going to draw the line that this person, even though I appreciate them, this person does not need to be in my life. Because they've shown me through their behavior how they're acting toward me, and I don't like it. So I didn't do anything about it. I just kind of let it go. And most recently, the person messaged me and said, I haven't been ignoring you, or it's not that I don't want to talk to you. I've just been dealing with, the normal excuses, right? But it was like 2 weeks and some change later, right? So again, the repetition of that behavior. And I did not respond because I didn't even know how to respond. So that leads me to self-love doesn't need to be a fight. You don't have to stand up and fight for your self-respect, your self-worth, your self-love, and even to have others mirror that back to you. It doesn't need to be a fight. It could be silence. But then again, one thing I need to ask myself is silence the correct choice here if silence is the one thing that annoyed me, right? It's like this on and off ghosting behavior, right? Because like I said, it's become extremely permissible in today's society. So I don't know if mirroring that behavior is the most self-loving and or mature choice. Now, had this person been abusive in any way, like verbally abusive over texting or messaging or whatever, ghosting would be a clear choice, right? I'm not saying that wouldn't be a clear choice, but that is not the case. It could be just stepping back, right? Not necessarily ghosting, but stepping back. Okay, it could be a slow fade. And then it could be responding with something, right? So when you're showing yourself self-love and there are people in your life that aren't treating you exactly in the way that you want to be treated, there could be a response. Now, for me, I am hesitating on this response because, honestly, I don't want to write a book to this person. I think less is more in this situation, but I feel like something needs to be said. And I also don't want to point fingers, right? And I don't think that is a good display of self-love either, because you don't want to blame other people. So, it might be something like, it's been real. I really enjoy catching up. I prefer to have connections that are more consistent. I wish you all the best, but does that even sound good or right for this situation? Now, this is something I wish I had pondered for my self-love book, right? Like responses to someone, a friend, when you need to break up with that friend because they're not doing life the way you hope a friendship would be, right? Because here's the thing though, is that by this age, this person's older than me, but by this age, this person should know about how friendship works, right? And it probably also means that they're not going to change. Learning self-love is not like a one and done, okay? I have been on my own personal self-love journey. I say in earnest, right? In other vlogs, I've talked about this. I've been on my own self-love journey in earnest since about 2023. Closer to 2024, but probably closer to on the cusp of 2023, 2024. So it has not been that much time. I mindfully started my self-love journey back in 2019, but really working through it 2023 to 2024, around that cusp. It's something that you are still learning as a person when situations come up in your life that put into question your self-love, your self-worth, your self-respect. And for me, this is one of those things. So if you are in the same situation with a certain person in your life, or it could be more than one person, just know that I too also struggle with this, that I don't know how exactly to draw that line. And it's something I'm learning as I'm calibrating on my self-love journey. Now, the good thing about going through this work is that I know it way, way, way sooner than I ever did in the past. So I'm drawing that line much quicker than I was. I guess what it shifts to is not how can this person treat me better, but it's more like, is this person capable of meeting me where I'm at now? Because honestly, people don't change that quickly. And a lot of people just don't want to change. So it's not like, how can I make sure that they treat me better? Especially if you've seen patterns of behavior that are very similar, where they do something, weeks later, they apologize, you get back into the groove, and they do something again that totally sabotages the connection, and they apologize, So it's just like, it's madness, right? When you think about it. So it's like, is this person capable of meeting me where I am at currently, right now? And if the answer is no, then they have no place in your life. Like, that's just what I've learned through the self-love journey, is that I'm not going to wait around for people who continually make excuses for their behavior but don't change their behavior. That's just madness, right? I just want to let you know that what I'm going through, and hey, put it in the comments section below if you have an opinion on what I should write to this person, or whether I should write to this person at all. Please put it in the comment section below, because I would like to know. It's not necessarily looking at yourself in the mirror all the time and saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, which is great, right? I actually give that exercise from Louise Hay in one of the chapters in my book, right? That is great. But it's really also about knowing your feelings, your wants, your needs, your desires in relationships with others, right? It's also about that. So I'm going to go back to the 3 questions, but just turn it in a different way for relationships. And the first question is, how do I feel when this person doesn't follow through? When they say they're going to follow through and they don't follow through, how does that make me feel? And the second question is, what do I need in friendship or in love? What do I need in friendship or in love? Do I need consistency? Do I need proximity? Do I need a phone call every week? What do I need, right? In friendship or in love? And what do I desire in my relationships now? Like, do I want them to be like my inner circle? Like, that's really what I would like to have more of those closer relationships in my inner circle, but also, networking with other people. So like, what do I desire for my relationships right now? It could be freedom and space for some people, right? Or it could be real closeness where you're meeting up with your friends once a week. So those are the questions. And this is something I discussed in the book as well, is that you are allowed to outgrow your relationships and friendships, right? You are allowed, because the more you grow in yourself, the more you love yourself unconditionally, those relationships will change and some of them will disappear. I am used to that happening because I've been going through this spiritual journey for many years and I have seen it firsthand. And in fact, in chapter 7 of my book, I talk about the necessary but temporary loneliness. So just know that it's kind of normal as you are growing into yourself and what you want on the next level. And as you're going into more self-love, self-respect, self-worth, right? Your relationships will change, and that's actually okay. And I know that I'm struggling with this, but like I said, the more you learn, the more life gives you opportunities to practice what you've learned. And I know this, and I'm sure you know this too. So I want to thank you so much for joining me here today, talking about this topic that is hitting pretty close to home today for me. And make sure to hit the thumbs up, share this with others who might be experiencing something like this, where people are not treating them the way they want to be treated and they're kind of stuck because they're very empathetic, right? Thank you so much for subscribing if you're not yet subscribed, and picking up a few of my published books. And of course, go to my website for all the courses. You can also book a tarot reading and coaching session with me, and I will see you in the next video.